You ever wonder why you're not getting bites on any laydowns? Let me show you where those bass actually go and how to catch them when it's hot out. Most ponds have three main types of cover: wood, lily pads, and grass. And I'm talking offshore grass. But depending on the weather conditions during the summertime, only one of them will hold the most bass. Today I'll show you how to figure out which one to fish, which baits to use to catch them, and why where the bass are keeps changing. So I've been out on a sunny day where it felt like every laydown I fished had bass around it. So all I had to do if I wanted to was just go fish every piece of wood around the pond for a good day on the water. When this is the pattern, I throw a frog, a jig, or a fluke. But don't overlook this hybrid hunter crankbait. It's a very buoyant bait which I twitched on the surface above the trunk of a tree, and this almost 4 pound bass came out and ate it. Now, we've had some pretty crazy heat this summer with some high 90s with not much relief at night either. If you were on this wood pattern and then came out after some heat wave and tried it again, you may notice it feels like the bass have disappeared. Bass love laydowns for its ability to hold heat and cast some shade, but when it's too hot, they don't need its warmth and they don't offer as much shade as the lily pads right next door. This is where the pattern gets less predictable and you have to figure out where they went. The bass will be in the pads, and sometimes I find they love to be on the outside edges of them. Now, if you're catching just one or two here and there and still seems rather empty, go check any deeper grass you may have after the last little pod of lily pads. If you find more out there, fan cast any water where the last bit of pads ends. You could even use those pads as a point of reference to cast from. You may find a few different schools, and by schools, I mean like two or three bass. In my experience, it's always been tough to find a big school of bass in a pond. Okay, for what to throw, when they're in the pads, throw a frog both in the thicker parts and along the edges. A jig will also work. You can flip it around the pads and hop it all over in the water column, imitating a stressed out bluegill. You may need to avoid bottom contact if your pond has a nasty bottom, but don't think you can't throw a jig if that's the case. Avoiding bottom contact works just fine. A fluke will also work. Twitch it in and around the same places and just let it fall for a couple of seconds every now and then. Now, if you're still here, here's a bait of choice you might not have expected for lily pads. They have to be the small ones. Even if there's a very small lane in between them of water to work with, you can still manipulate this thing between them. It's a walking bait, and my nephew has almost perfected this. I'd have to say, not many bass have seen this type of lure while in the pads, and he just catches them doing it. For the offshore grass fish, a spinnerbait and a chatterbait, for me, can't be beat. Just fire it out there, let it sink for a few seconds, and start reeling, always imparting reel and rod twitches during your retrieve. Once you catch one, you can also throw your jig out there in the same spot just to try to pluck more out if that's more your style. Even a fluke can work out here, just let it fall for a bit before working it. Another extremely effective bait out here is the crankbait. And most of what we learn about crankbaits is to use one that dives deeper than your water to get to the strike zone quicker, stay there longer while maintaining bottom contact and creating deflections and change of direction that create the reaction strikes. But for ponds, a lot of them have a soft and super grassy bottom, and that won't work at all. But don't worry, there's a solution. Use a crankbait that dives a foot or two shallower than where you're fishing, so you can either tick the grass or you can use reel twitches and pauses to simulate bottom contact to trigger these bites. I was doing this when I caught this 7 pounder. Now, once the weather cools off again after a long period of heat, is when you can expect to catch them on the wood again, and this can be a repeatable cycle. Basically, if you're not catching them on the wood, try the pads. If that's slow, try the offshore grass. If this video helped you out, drop a like and hit subscribe so I know I should keep making more just like this. Thank you for watching.